Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome to the IELTS podcast. We are kicking off the first episode of our podcast. Hope it can be a good start. Without further ado, let me tell you what we are supposed to do. I'm going to talk to a friend of mine, Mehdi, who is a competent, knowledgeable and experienced IELTS instructor. Both of us have written an essay and we are going to discuss our ideas and analyze our essays in terms of 4 IELTS writing criteria: task response, coherence and cohesion, lexical resources, and grammatical range and accuracy. The question is, should professionals be required to work in their own country? Okay, let's dive in. Hi all, hope you're all keeping safe and well. It's great to have you here. Let's jump straight to our discussion and welcome Mehdi. Mehdi, it's a pleasure to have you here. Don't you want to say hi to our listeners?
All right. It's great to be here. I would like to say hello to my dear friend, Mr. Sultanzadeh. It's a pleasure to be here, my friend. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope that lovely listeners enjoy this podcast. We're going to talk about writing task 2.
Okay.
All right. Let's get started.
Yeah, I hope they can enjoy. I guess it's a nice idea to first talk about the initial steps. I'm just going to ask you, what's the first thing you do? For example, you're given a question. What is the very beginning step that you take?
Yeah, well, there are different things that people do, but the first thing I do is that I am aware of the fact that we have a limited time. Time is limited, and this is a race against time, man, because you got 60 minutes and you've got to do 2 tasks, and you need to know what you should be doing exactly. So the first thing I do is to just jump right at it. I read, for example, this one, let me just read the task that we both did. It says some people believe that professionals such as doctors and engineers should be required to work in the country where they did their training. Others believe they should be free to work in another country if they wish. Discuss both views and give your opinion. It comes from Cambridge 17 test 3. So the first thing I do is I make sure that I understand the topic. So that's the first thing. I just read at least 2 or 3 times to get the essence, the core topics, and the domain. So I know that I'm on topic. So what do you say?
Okay, you've used some interesting terms. The first thing I do is to read the question 3 times. I always suggest that. To read the question 3 times, because I guess there is a chance of misreading the question and misunderstanding the question. Many candidates ignore some important keywords, so I do recommend reading the question 3 times. While reading the question, I guess we should identify 3 important elements of each question. The first one is the core, the second one is the limit, and the third one is the order. By core, I mean the general topic. For example, the general topic of our question is education and work, but we have some limitations. So the question is asking us whether we agree that professionals should be working in their own country or not. And finally, we have the order, and it's very important because there is a world of difference between to what extent do you agree and discuss both views and give your opinion, because even if you develop one idea very well and you ignore another idea, I guess your task response will be limited to a 5. So it's very important to read the question carefully, identify these 3 important elements, and then it's time for planning and brainstorming ideas. First of all, I brainstorm some ideas and come up with some ideas, and then I try to categorize them in order of importance. I usually suggest 2 different approaches. The first one is to side with one of the ideas, and the second one is to give a separate idea. And it's interesting that we have followed 2 different approaches. For example, you have sided with one of the ideas, but I decided to give a separate idea, and I have written 3 body paragraphs. So what do you do when you want to plan for your essay?
Well, for brainstorming, I use a method called dimensional thinking. There are 12 different dimensions. I basically look at the topic from different angles, different viewpoints: family, media, education, economy, environment, past or history, future or prospect, society and culture, psychology and personality, health and medicine, science and technology, and government and politics. I just go through them one by one, and then the interesting thing is that it may look or sound controversial, but this is the only part of the entire IELTS exam that I recommend people to do it in Farsi. It is controversial, but the rationale behind it is that people are usually more comfortable with their own language when they want to generate ideas. So because they don't worry about vocabulary, collocation, grammar structure, it's just pure ideas and idea generation. So that's what I do, and I just tell them to write it all in Farsi. Write
Mm-hmm.
it all in Farsi and then let it flow. And
Mm-hmm.
what matters here is just I tell them to avoid bullet points, because
Mm-hmm.
bullet points is bad for you. You have to develop the idea and then ask yourself these questions: why? Then what? What happens after that? And so when the idea starts flowing, you just follow the lead to see where it gets you.
Okay,
And that's
interesting. Yeah,
basically what I do.
that's interesting to hear. You recommend thinking and writing in Farsi when it comes to the initial planning. And I
Yeah.
always encourage my students to personalize and customize all the strategies and techniques given by teachers. So perhaps it might work for some students to think in Farsi.
Right.
Interesting. So yeah, personally, I try to, after brainstorming some ideas, I try to create my clear position. For example, my position for this essay is that I'm not going to agree or disagree with one of the views. I'm just going to give my separate view. And I'm
Right.
just going to say that I believe that we should give them a specified period of time to work in their own country, and then they should be given some sort of freedom to go and work wherever they want. So first of all, I just try to come up with a clear position, and then I try to create my paragraphs. I always try to have a clear topic sentence. This is something that
Yep.
I pay a lot of attention to. And then I try to number my ideas. For example, I say, this is my topic sentence. This is the first sentence. The second sentence is my first idea. The third sentence is how I develop my idea. For example, example, reason, result. How can I develop my idea? So clearly and in details, I
Yeah.
going to write my planning, and I found it really helpful because many people are afraid of the time limit and they forget
Yeah.
about planning. But I believe that if you come up with a detailed and clear plan, you're going to save a lot of time.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So let's get started with introduction. Introduction is important in my opinion, but not that important. So I never dedicate more than 5 minutes to introduction. So the most straightforward way of writing introductions, in my opinion, is just you write two sentences. The first sentence is the paraphrase of the topic that you have. By paraphrase, I mean try to change as many words and phrases as possible, but not all of them. And then you express your opinion. What's your position on that? So if you allow me, I would like to just read my intro on the same topic, and then we see what happens.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I just said some think that professionals such as engineers and doctors should be obliged to stay and continue their careers in their country of origin where they studied and graduated, while others think they should have the freedom to move to whichever country they desire and no restrictions should be imposed on them. So that's the paraphrase of the topic. So my position is I personally think that everyone, including professionals, is born free and their freedom must be respected at all costs. What I always say, and I recommend people, is try to avoid saying that it depends.
Yeah.
I don't really like that. I usually ask them to see black and white. It's much easier, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to develop that. So
Yeah, and to be
this
as
is what I
clear
do.
as possible, because many students unfortunately try to care a lot about grammar and vocabulary. They prioritize grammar and vocabulary, and they forget about giving a clear position. They use many complex structures in just one sentence, and this is
Yeah.
the sentence that shows their position, and finally we don't understand what their position is. So yeah, I do agree with you. We should give a very clear position, and I think you've done a very good job. As you said in your introduction, we see I personally think that everyone, including professionals, is born free and their freedom must be respected at all costs. It's very clear. And yeah, um,
And
you've
one
made.
last thing is that sometimes, sorry, they say, okay, should it be British or American? I was asked this a lot. They say, okay, obligated or obliged. What I say is that you've got to be consistent with it. Like if you say obliged, everything has to be British all the way. But if you say obligated, then you chose American, which is fine, but don't switch to British. Just wanted to mention that
Interesting.
as
And something interesting about your introduction, I have highlighted some interesting phrases. For example, you have used while. While is a complex structure because, another misinformation is that many students think that complex structures are very outstanding and difficult structures. But simply using while here has made a sentence complex. And no restrictions should be imposed. Good collocation. And you have used the passive structure. I like that. And can we have a look at my introduction?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I have written, it is sometimes suggested that experts like those graduating from engineering or medicine fields should be obliged to work in the country they were educated and trained. However, others say that they should be given the freedom to choose where to find their occupation. I believe it's better to oblige them to work for a specified period of time in their own country and then let them decide where they want to work. What do you think about my introduction?
Absolutely beautiful. The thing is that you paraphrased the topic really, really thoroughly and made it clear, like, the two sides of the topic, and then again you made it clear what you want to say, which is the third way, which is really, really interesting in here.
And the point is that some students confuse giving a clear position with giving a sharp and absolute position. By a clear position, we don't mean to say I absolutely agree with something. You can have a balanced view, like what you see in my essay, but you can have a clear position as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, interesting. I guess we can move on to your first body paragraph. I have highlighted some good things in terms of 4 criteria. You've started with a, again, clear topic sentence. I always encourage my students to be clear, specifically in the position and in their topic sentences. You've said that it's argued on the one hand that professionals owe everything they have to their country. Obviously, you're showing that you're going to discuss the first view, okay? You have to do it. The order of the question is to discuss both views. Even if you do not agree with one view, you have to support that view. Okay.
Right, but what I want to say is that there are 2 views, and obviously you favor one of them. So I always put the one that I favor, is my opinion. I put it second in body paragraph 2 because I want it to be resonated one last time in conclusion. That's the rationale behind it. So this idea obviously is not what I believe. So that's why I put it in the first body paragraph. If it's okay, I just want to go through this once and then we see what happens, right?
And you've used a nice phrase, it is argued. When you say it is argued, it means that you're not going to argue. You say that someone else says that. It's not my personal view. Okay, and let's move on. They could not have had such academic and profession. You've used modal perfect, could not have had. Nice grammar. Such academic or professional accomplishment, I've highlighted it as a nice collocation. Had it not been for individual sacrifices, again, we have a nice complex structure. Individual sacrifices is a nice collocation. Every member of society make. And you've used some interesting vocabulary, and you're showing us a range of vocabulary. You show the examiner that I know many vocabularies and I can use them skillfully.
And it's interesting, just in the parentheses, they ask me all the time, where do you get that? What is the source of these? They keep asking me to introduce a book. There are loads of books out there, But the thing is that you need to read authentic materials as much as you can. Like every morning, I just read Guardian, the newspaper, one or two articles on different subjects. And I recommend that. Like while you're having breakfast, just go ahead and read something.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, and I read an article by Simon. So he's a famous IELTS instructor, and I like him a lot. And he was talking about the difference between studying and immersion. And I guess immersion will give us a degree of flexibility to learn more, to learn better, and use the language more skillfully and naturally. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. Yeah.
And after that, when I talked about this one, I just developed that. I said from military, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies in charge of making the country safe, to farmers producing their foods, to even cleaners at the university scrubbing the floors, every single one of them made it possible for these doctors and engineers to become who they eventually become. So I further developed that point.
Yeah.
And I continued with professionals are invaluable assets to any country and are ethically and morally expected to stay in the motherland and spend the rest of their days paying back their debt to society. And I finish it with not only does this selfless act serve as an inspiration for future generations who see them as a positive role model, but also it promotes their country on the global stage and is what can be called true patriotism. So like that basically the same line of thought further develops down the road. This is what I did. So just
Okay,
like
yeah, and
one
yeah,
idea.
let's highlight some of the positive features of your paragraph. So, as you said, you clearly mention some to the point ideas, and then you develop them. You don't simply present them, you extend and develop them. And I don't think you're overgeneralizing. All the ideas are relevant to the topic. And you've used some nice collocations like invaluable assets. But sometimes students say that, okay, we know that the meaning of these words. However, you always encourage us to use a wide range of vocabulary. I guess, again, they have misunderstood the term less common vocabulary. By less common vocabulary, we don't mean heavy vocabulary. We mean a range. We mean collocations. We mean topic-related vocabularies. For example, you've used invaluable assets. I consider it a nice collocation. Ethically and morally expected. Nice. Paying back their debt. Inspiration for future generations. Fine, you give true patriotism. So these are nice lexical resources, I would say. And you've used a range of grammar. You've used compound sentences using simply and, not only, but also you've used relative clauses, who, you've used modal perfects, you've used conditional sentences.
The thing is that here, Mr. Sultan, is that the thing is that they are not forced. Like I don't have the list. They say, okay, I have to use this and that. I think they have to come naturally. What do you say to that?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
You shouldn't force it. You shouldn't force it on your essay.
Yeah. So as I said before, we shouldn't prioritize grammar and vocabulary. First of all, we should think about how relevant our ideas are and how logically we can organize them. Nice. Can we have a look at my first body paragraph?
Of course.
Okay, so let me read the first body paragraph. On the one hand, and as I said before, I'm just going to give a separate view, and as a result, I'm just going to write 3 body paragraphs. That's why my first body paragraph is a little bit shorter. On the one hand, it is said that a country has invested in these skilled professionals. Countries usually provide them with scholarships, grants, and other financial supports to help them acquire knowledge and skills during their studies. So it seems unfair to leave their country and ignore all the attempts made for them. The proponents of this view believe that this immigration can be a kind of exploitation by other countries, as they simply use the expertise of the students and workers who have been trained somewhere else. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's really, really perfect. Like different collocations we see here, and the idea is completely clear. You developed it really, really well. It's flawless. Really, really good. And then because you're writing 3 body paragraph, you keep that in mind that this one, there has to be, one of them shouldn't be too long. So that's the thing. You kept that in mind. You developed it, but at the same time, they are brief,
Yeah.
not too long, because there are two more body paragraphs coming.
As you
So
said, we were just
probably
given 40 minutes, and it's not enough
exactly
to to write more than, I
right.
guess, 300 words. All right. And I guess we can move on to your second body paragraph in which you're going to support your own view. Could you please read it for us?
Exactly. Yeah, of course. Some, on the other hand, believe that those who manage to become doctors and engineers should have the liberty to reside and practice their profession wherever they wish and must not be forced to stay in their own country against their will. Medical doctors and engineers have long deprived themselves of most pleasures of life, dedicating their time and energy to their studies. That is why they expect to reap the benefit of their labor when they graduate and become financially stable for the rest of their lives. However, should they feel unappreciated, not well compensated, and struggle to make the ends meet in their own country, they will immigrate to a developed country where they are truly valued. These professionals are not to blame or considered less patriotic than the rest of the citizens, since they have all the rights to live in a place where they have the social status they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in here, I just followed the one line of thought and I
Mm-hmm.
further explained what happened. And I always tell my students that remember the difference in words when you write
Mm-hmm.
two body paragraphs, there has to be like a window of 20
Mm-hmm.
words,
Mm-hmm.
more or less, plus minus 20 words. But in this case, it happened to be 154 words, which is a bit long,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think I did it in time and it can be done.
Okay, so let's have a closer look at
Yeah.
your writing. Again, you've developed your ideas. We see a clear central idea in your paragraph, and it will secure a high score for your coherence and cohesion. You developed your ideas very well. They're relevant to the point, and you've used again some good vocabulary, like liberty to reside and practice. It's a topic related vocabulary. Deprived themselves of most pleasures of life,
Yeah.
dedicating time and energy, reap the benefit, which is a collocation, compensated, truly valued. I see again a skillful use of collocations. And again, we see some complex structures, in particular adverbial clauses like wherever, like since. You've used relative clauses like when. You've used inversion structure, should they feel
Yeah.
unappreciated. And another interesting thing is the coherence of your sentences. For example, you avoided giving us too many linkers. That's something that many candidates do. For example, instead of giving us too many, moreover, furthermore, in addition, as a result, you try to
Yeah.
use pronouns instead of using some linkers. For example, in one of your sentences, instead of saying using a linker, you said these professionals, and you've used a
Yeah.
pronoun, and it will definitely improve your coherence score.
Yeah, you build ideas on top of other ideas and move
Mm-hmm.
on. So
Mm-hmm.
it has to be like seamless and
Mm-hmm.
subtle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I guess we can read my second and third body
Yeah,
paragraphs because I have
of
given
course.
my own paragraph in the third main paragraphs. On the other hand, it is stated that people should be given the opportunity to work where they climb the ladder quicker and easier. Some countries might offer more well-paid careers with more attractive bonuses and perks. Besides, the promotion prospects seem to be better in other countries, so some professionals may decide to travel to other areas which can guarantee them a more promising future. It is against the human right to deter them from getting promoted by forcing them to stay in their country. This is the second paragraph.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Just let me just say that again, the skillful use of collocations and phrases is outstanding here.
Mm-hmm.
Like climb the ladder. It comes from a book called English Collocation
Yeah.
in Use Advanced. You can find it there. Again, collocation, well-paid career, bonus and perks. Also, when you go down, like can guarantee them something. Again,
Mm-hmm.
collocation, promising future. Wonderful, wonderful. It's just like the other side of the idea completely developed. Perfect.
Yeah, and I always try to write in a way that is easy to follow. Yeah, I don't prioritize grammar or vocabulary. I
Yeah.
try to first prioritize task response and coherence
Yeah.
and cohesion.
That's
And
the right
the
thing to
third paragraph, that said, I think it will be a good idea to set a time period for them to work in their own country, as they should serve the country which has helped them gain this level of proficiency. Once this period is finished, governments should encourage them to stay in their country by offering them more salaries and facilities. The obligation does not appear to be a good policy, as professionals may show reluctance and prefer to be free while deciding on their career paths. So this is my own view, and honestly speaking, this is my real view. So if someone asks me the question in the real world outside the IELTS world, I would say the same.
Yeah, that's again completely clear, and everything is expressed. It's not too long or wordy. Everything to the point, and it's easy to follow. Your position is crystal clear here, which is something really really valuable.
And
Well
so
done.
far, I guess I think other people, when we publish this podcast, should give us their comments. But I guess so far
Yeah.
we've given a clear position so far at the end of our body paragraph. So let's have a look at your conclusion and see whether the clear position can be seen
So
in this
I
paragraph.
think when it comes to conclusion, I always tell the students that, you know what, you got 5 minutes. You have to write one or maximum of 2 sentences. What you need to do, I always encourage them to use a conclusive word or phrase, like to conclude, in conclusion, in short, to sum up. Although it is not necessary, but I think it's not a bad idea to use it at the beginning, and then make sure that you clearly paraphrase what you already said, link the previous ideas already talked about and developed in your essay, and most importantly, do not express a new idea in conclusion. Never surprise the examiner. This is something that happens, Mr. Sultanizadeh. They write and suddenly they say, oh my God, I got this brilliant idea. What should I do? Okay, I'm going to stick it in there. That's a bad thing. That's actually a bad thing. I mean, when you're done brainstorming at the beginning, all you have to do is to turn that into a solid writing. That's all you have to do. Forget about new ideas. Just stick with the plan and then turn that into a writing. So I said, in short, one must admit that freedom is an inherent human right, which cannot be taken away from people. Doctors and engineers should be free to live and work wherever they like, because they have worked their entire lives to achieve success and cannot be forced to stay in their country if they do not wish to do so.
Okay, again, yeah.
Right.
So you have concluded from your body paragraphs, okay? Because as you say, some of the students just write something and say in conclusion, I believe something. But this is not the result of their body paragraphs. They just say what they want to express. So it's not the result of their body paragraphs. But I guess that your conclusion is completely the result of and the conclusion of your body paragraphs.
Yeah. Thank you.
And my conclusion, in the final analysis, both opponents and proponents of obliging experts to stay and work in their country have some valid arguments. However, I suppose they should be free to choose where to work after spending some time working in their own country. Any word of advice?
Yeah, like it's exactly what we expect from writing, and that, standard. And also I like the valid arguments collocation. That's also really good. And but like, just by reading that conclusion, it conveys what you want to say, and that's important.
Okay.
Well done.
Yeah,
Well done.
interesting. Thank you very much. I did enjoy talking to you about our writings. So let's have some. So let's give some pieces of advice to those who are listening to our podcast. Many of them may ask how they can improve their writing. I guess they should be logical and follow a methodic approach. And many of the students, unfortunately, nowadays are enticed by the promises of easy wins. And as a result, they don't follow the right paths, materials, and tutors. So the first thing is to be logical and believe that you should practice. It's difficult, it's challenging, but you should have a clear plan. You should have a qualified tutor, and you should follow some right
Absolutely.
materials, and consistency matters.
And of course, they have to be open to criticism. Like they have to, incorporate the feedback they receive and then try to improve just a little bit every time. They have to write many writings, receive lots of feedback, and then gradually they improve. Just don't be disappointed.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to this podcast. Please write down your comments in the comment section below. Please help us improve our podcast. And I hope to see you soon by giving you another podcast. But please suggest whatever you think can improve our work. Mehdi, any final words?
Thank you. Thank you very much, my dear friend, Mr. Sultanizadeh, for this lovely opportunity. And I wish that we could get together like soon in the near future for the second and third episode. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Do take care, and bye-bye for now.
Bye.